I've got the good fortune every Thursday of sitting here anywhere from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, depending on what the workload is. And since I've gotten here, as a senator from Indiana, as a Main Street entrepreneur, almost everything I talk about is stuff that I've learned back in the real world. And now and then, there'll be a speaker here that breaks up the monotony of sitting there for that amount of time. My friend and fellow senator, Senator Lee, couldn't have said it more eloquently. We've got a beautiful graph here to show the issue. I'm going to take just a few minutes to reinforce what he said. You know, when I ran for Senate, I did it out of a frustration that it seems like only here in D.C. do we hear the same things year after year, and nothing ever seems to change. I know the responsibility of leadership in trying to navigate through the system, but sooner or later, we've got to just simply say enough is enough. You know, this year with the president, I really think wanting to shake the system up, I was hoping, like back in March of 2018, when there was a continuing resolution agreed to re-enable defense, which in my opinion is probably the most important thing the federal government should do, that might be the last time. As Senator Lee said, look at the chart. There was always a good reason in the past, and it was generally along the lines of defending our country. But the ethic back then should be what the ethic is now, and like it is for every household, every state government, every school board, and especially every business, that you borrow money not to consume. That's called putting it on a credit card. And almost everything we do in the federal government, there's not a tangible asset to show for it. We're actually spending it and consuming it. When you borrow money in any business, there's a difference between expenses and supplies and capital expenditures. We do not even talk about that. I'm going to accept the reality of the system today. I don't like it. I'm going to vote against the bill as well. I've talked to my fellow members about we need to, sooner or later, quit saying the same things. We need to, sooner or later, to reform the system, to actually do things that are going to be different from everything we've done in the past that has led us to this. How's it going to happen? We're going to need to have more senators like Senator Lee, like myself, that get involved and make the case. But the only way this is really going to happen is if Hoosiers, Americans, know you could never get by with this in your own household. I know I could have never built a national business by doing this over 37 years. It's like in business, people always ask you, well, how did you get there? I tell you how I got there. Through patience, perseverance, hard work, reinvesting every penny I made, borrowing money only when it made sense, and it wasn't for nicer corporate headquarters. My office was in a mobile home for 17 years. I appreciated low overhead. When you do things like that, great opportunities come your way. Rather than great opportunities, and all the people that come here from Indiana every week somehow connected with the federal government, wanting more, my advice to them is hedge your bets. If you're dependent on an institution like this that just is so stubborn, will not correct itself, this trajectory will lead to a bad day somewhere down the road that our kids and grandkids will deal with. The other side of the aisle, I think, does drive a lot of this mentality that the federal government should do more regardless of what it costs. The income tax occurred about right back in here. That became a source of revenue for the federal government that we pretty well disciplined ourselves with until we got to right here, when entitlements and the mandated spending took over the dynamic of our federal government. We've got everything on autopilot here where you can't even discuss it. Between Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, interest on our debt, and about another 10 to 15% that we've moved from discretionary to mandatory, another gimmick here, it's only 30% of the budget that we can deal with. Senator Lee talked about it. All of that we know, and all I'm asking, leadership, the president, when we do win in 2020, because I think we will, because anybody that's proposing ideas like the Green New Deal, Medicare for all, free college tuition, getting rid of college debt is only going to add fuel to the fire. But we as fiscal conservatives are going to have to be heard, and leadership and the president is going to have to hear us. So even though it's not going to happen this time, we shouldn't be afraid to talk about it, because everyone else in our country, households, school boards, businesses, state governments do. And that's because they have the common sense to live within their means, not loot the bank in the present and shovel all these troubles on the future generations. Yield my time.